Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Alex Quest Daily Show. Thank you all for joining me out there, pressing play, listening to the podcast. I'm pumped to be here, as always. It is Tuesday, February 1st, 2022. Before we get going with all the fun stuff, as always, like, share, follow, subscribe, rate us 5 stars, and tell your friends. Word of mouth, biggest, best way to get us out there. So do all these things, and blessings will come upon you. No, I can't guarantee that, but it will be greatly appreciated. Social media stuff, go search the Alex Quest Show wherever you can find social media. You'll see the logo. It's just the words, the Alex Quest Show. It's there, and you'll see it. Real easy. Cuesta is my last name. And I just want to jump right into the show. February 1st, it is the start of Black History Month. And I just want to say that has no bearing on me, because I actually hate the history months. I understand that at a time it was necessary to have these types of things, to have the Women's History Month, Black History Month, whatever history month you want to do. Now that we are here, the one thing I might agree kind of, I guess, on the base level with the CRT people and some of the psycho wokest about the racial stuff is teaching history of other people and just the complete American history is proper. I don't think the 1619 Project gets it right, because I don't agree with their claim on its face. I need to read it more. I have to say that. I need to read the 1619 Project more. I've read some of it. It is rather long in the full book, so I do need to read more of it. I am saying that. But in a way, I do agree with the fact that we need to learn our complete history. And that also includes, Black people, women. If there were any gay people that had an impact, anyone that had an impact should be included in history curriculum. And obviously it should scale depending on the age group. You're not going to teach the details of Malcolm X's speeches and kind of the opposition to Martin Luther King in a way, even though they were trying to get to the same goal. You're not going to go into the nitty gritty of that. But you can teach about these types of things. Now, where I'm opposed to it is, I don't like just dedicating 31 days or 30 days or whatever the hell it is. It's February. It's 28 days. I don't like just dedicating a set amount of time where the rest of the year, what are we just not going to learn about Black people? If they have their place in history right there, we're just not going to do it. That's why I disagree with it. I think that, especially now we're like, what are we, 1776? I don't know what to get. I'm not going to do math here. 200 and something years. We're 250 years old, something like that. We've had enough history of Black people, women, Black women, such and such, whatever immutable characteristic you can think of, and some mutable ones, and some, regardless, we've had enough diversity of people that have had impact on our society that they can be taught in the proper time frame and given the proper due. We don't need months. We're past that. Right now, it's just a political bullshit thing. It's unnecessary. So I will not be necessarily celebrating Black History Month because I don't think it's necessary. I think what we should do is upgrade curriculum to fit in influential Black people where they belong in the history and include them. Put them in there, in their proper setting. There's no reason why every February we should just be painted with pictures of Martin Luther King and Harriet Tubman and, Frederick Douglass and George Washington Carver, Booker T. Washington. Why should all of these great influential individuals be crammed into 28 days? There's 365 days in the year. There's all different phases of curriculum. Not necessary to cram them into a month. Let's do this the right way. Let's teach it the right way. And I think everyone will get much more out of it if it's all taught in its proper setting. And again, I'm not saying I'm the one to decide when it should get taught, how much of it should get taught. That is for other people that get together and decide curriculum in schools. And I don't always agree with a lot of these people right now, especially since the activists have made their way heavily into schools. A lot of leftists and Marxists that don't actually give a shit about teaching kids. They just want to teach them how to problematize and teach them class and cultural warfare type of stuff so that they're raising activists instead of critical thinkers and educated civilians. But I digress on that. I just am against specific months dedicated to immutable characteristics or certain things like that. And, we don't need to be told to celebrate uniqueness and individualism as Americans. It's not something we should be told. We should be past that. And I think we are past that in a lot of ways. But bringing up the ancient history, opening up the old wounds, sometimes necessary because these things are difficult, but it's not necessary every single day of the year, all the time. And to live that way, living that way is not a good way to live. So that is my spiel on Black History Month. So that'll probably be the last time you hear me talking about it. Maybe next year I'll bring it back up again and I'll go through my diatribe again. And maybe there'll be an update there. Maybe someone will get smart and say, hey, fuck Black History Month. It's not necessary. Let's just put these influential Black people where they belong in history and teach them properly and fully right there and flesh them out, make the kids write about them, make the kids do homework about them and do all the right things about them. And if it comes to English, let's pick some books written by Black people. Why does it have to be during Black History Month that we learn about great Black writers and great Black poets? Unnecessary. Unnecessary to save them for a month. Put them in the proper curriculum. But I digress. I digress from there. We are going to jump into one other thing before I get to my article of the day. I'm going to update on the ID.me stuff that was going on. Now, I talked about that. I don't even know the date. Probably last week, maybe a little bit over last week. I think it was how the IRS was attempting to use ID.me to basically gather all of our information and put it in one spot into one app. It was dangerous as shit, still dangerous. And then I updated it saying that the owner, Blake Hall, came out, the CEO, and said, hey, we messed up. We said we were using one-to-one technology to, pick pictures up against for people. We lied. We're using government style, one-to-many. We go through agencies. I guess from that yesterday, an article by Irina Ivanova came across my way from CBS News, and the title, IRS is exploring alternatives to selfie verification with ID.me. Apparently, the fire, the scrutiny, and a lot of things that are coming up against ID.me and the concerns have caused them to kind of take a step back from this part of using ID.me. The IRS might not use them. Now, they're exploring alternatives. That doesn't mean that they're going to stop at a company like ID.me. They might go to another company that's just its competitor with a quote unquote better safety record. So keep on the eye, keep your ear on the ground. This isn't done with the IRS and identification. It said that it's flat out said. I think one of the people in this article said that they just don't have the resources to continue to do it this way. So they need to go outsourced and this and that. And it's such bullshit. They have a ton of resources. They have a ton of money thrown at them. How they flounder it is besides me. Then they just hire like a ton more people to audit. It was an obscene amount of IRS people on the ground to go and basically look into people. It was the $600 thing with banks. I think they raised the threshold, but still they're hiring a ton of IRS agents. So you're telling me you don't have the resources? Bullshit. So keep your ears to the ground. It looks like ID.me may be out. I'm going to continue to look stuff up on this daily because this to me is the most important thing going on the planet. I know civil rights groups are going up against the IRS to try and get them out. But if the IRS is going in this direction, they're not going to stop. If ID.me is gone, they're going to go some other way to get what they need to get. Their goal to accomplish here is to get our information in one place on an app and try to make it not look like a digital passport. Their goal is a digital passport here. They're just trying to do it sneakily. Now, this doesn't stop ID.me from being in the 27 states that they're in. They're already working in Social Security for employees. So don't lax on this. If you're in one of the 27 states that uses ID.me, I'm in New York here, fight against this. Fight against this because this is just wrong. We shouldn't be going third party. We shouldn't be allowing them to create digital passports. Like I said, Vaccine passports are a smokescreen. Get off those. Stop talking about those. They want you to talk about those because now they're slipping right under our noses with this nonsense. So right now, ID.me seems like they're on their way out with the IRS. If you're one of the 27 states, look it up if you're a part of that state. If you don't know, I don't have it off the top of my head. I should have the list, but look it up. And if you're in one of those 27 states, talk to your local state senator, your state assemblyman, whatever it is, congressman, whatever you have, your anyone that's a part of the state government and doing this, be like, hey, bring this up. Message or email your governor, do something, write letters, call them, make sure that they know. Make sure that they know that you're onto this nonsense and something needs to get done. So again, going to keep looking at for the ID.me stuff, seeing what else the IRS is doing. If they fade out, finding out if the IRS is going to continue going this way. I guarantee they will. I guarantee they will. So we're going to jump into the article of the day, though. It's on something a little different. It's by Mark Hemingway from realclearpolitics.com. This was written earlier today, and it's parental input on education is not book banning. They're going to lay out the premise here, and we're going to go through this one. So let's go on in. On Wednesday, Judd Legume, a liberal activist who runs a very large newsletter called Popular Information, reported that the school board in McMinn County, Tennessee, had voted to ban the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel Maus. The book has been hailed as a classic of literature about the Holocaust. It also contains several graphic passages. Before the end of the day, the news of the ruling of the school board in a small rural county had spread like wildfire across the internet. It even warranted a breaking news alert at the New York Times. Okay. So one thing about this book, I know nothing about the book Maus. I have a little background about me. At Marist College, I was a history person. I'm a history major, and my focus was Nazism. So this interests me, honestly. If it's about the Holocaust, if it's anything that has to do with Nazism, the cover is brilliant, it looks like. It has the Nazi logo. Hitler looks like he's like designed as like a pseudo cat. The mice are underneath him. I'm assuming that they're the Holocaust suffering Jews. I would like to read this graphic novel, but I'm a 33-year-old man making my own choice to read it. So let's keep going here. Unfortunately, much of the coverage of this story and many others like it as school curricula have become a hot button political issue. Sorry, let me restart there. Unfortunately, much of the coverage of the story and many others like it as school curricula have become a hot button political issue has been disingenuous. I don't take concerns about book banning lightly. In my more than 2 decades as a journalist, it's not an exaggeration to say I've written hundreds of thousands of words arguing for a robust and expansive definition of free speech. I have publicly defended French satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo's right to blaspheme in the face of terror attacks, just as I have deplored cancel culture and campus speech codes. However, I spent more than a decade on the board of a private school, and decisions about what's taught in K-12 classrooms and what ends up in a school library shelves isn't a tidy free speech issue. When the national media suggests that parents, administrators, and teachers are censors, or worse, are banning books by making necessary decisions about what reading material is age appropriate or meets community standards, more often than not, these news outlets are the ones politicizing the education. Ding, ding, ding with that. The news outlets, right or left, hop on these types of things and start to use what is meant to be educating kids as a political topic. Now, I know leftists are going to point out and say, Glenn Youngkin, the new governor of Virginia, just won an election off of using kids. No. He used it off of keeping critical race theory out of schools. One which anyone who supports critical race theory says it's not in schools. And then you say, okay, then why do you have a problem with banning it? Because we need to be taught the proper history. Okay, then it's in schools. And these morons like to say like, oh, it is a high-level law practice, of law thing. Of course it's not in schools. Yeah, because like dumbing shit down doesn't exist. I think I've used the example. You're not going to teach algebra to a first grader. You're going to teach them 1 + 1. But it's still math. So you're still teaching them math, but it's different types of math. It's dumbing down. Just like if you're a math major in college, you're learning calculus 5. You're not teaching that to a freshman in high school. It's all still math, though. It's still math theory. You're just teaching it at a lower level so it can be more digested and understood and built up to the proper theory. Now, that's what critical race theory comes in. And when they're saying it's not in schools, it's like bullshit. It's dumbed down versions and elements that are found in schools. Wokeism is everywhere in schools. So it's absolutely ridiculous. But I agree, the politicization is created by the media sources, right and left, and used to, political gotchas against other people. And it's nonsense that we're using kids as pawns in this. Let's continue. In the case of McMinn County, the 10-member board didn't vote to ban Maus, but it did remove it from the school's 8th grade curricula because it felt the book's profanity and graphic depictions of violence and suicide were too much for 13-year-olds. Maus is still in print, taught in many schools elsewhere, and widely available even in McMinn County. The McMinn school board members went so far as to state that they felt it is important to teach students about the Holocaust, and even said the district might go back to teaching Maus if something else more suitable on the topic can't be found. Now, stop right there. Stop. They don't need to make that last statement. That's soft. All you need to say is this book is too graphic and too adult for young adults the age of 13 and under and below high school should read. Period. You don't need to explain past that. 13-year-olds and 8th graders, we don't know what the fuck we're talking about when you're 13. When I was in 8th grade, I was worried about kissing a girl that I thought was cute and getting onto sports teams. That was my concern. It wasn't, I learned about certain things. I don't even think I learned about the Holocaust in 8th grade. That's pretty bizarre to teach 8th graders about the Holocaust. I don't think we were at that point in history. I think we knew it existed, but I don't think in 8th grade, a 13-year-old's mental capacity is able to understand the brutality of the Holocaust. I think that they know the general outline at that point. I think they know World War II existed, that Adolf Hitler was a madman. Adolf Hitler hated Jews, wanted to kill them, put them in camps with the intention to kill them. But if you're putting a graphic novel like Maus in front of them, and they are now seeing the graphic depictions, albeit with, it looks like cats and mice and not humans, but they are seeing the graphic depictions. They are seeing the dehumanization of these individuals. I don't know if they're ready for that. A 13-year-old, I don't know if they're ready for that. That's not a good thing to put in a 13-year-old's head right away. And again, if you want to sit there and allow them to watch it in your home, if you want to allow them to read that in your home, if you think that your child is mature enough to understand that, or if it's something your child is, some kids are just extremely interested in stuff. And if they love World War II and they want to know everything about it, have at it. Have at it. You could do what you want to do in your home. But what's in the schools, it needs to be appropriate. It needs to be. Let's continue. The national media, however, seems to feel concerns about nudity and profanity in Maus belie a more sinister agenda. The New York Times made scurrilous implication, asserting that McMinn County's decision comes as the Anti-Defamation League and others have warned of a recent rise in anti-Semitic incidents. I mean, New York Times is a joke. This is a paper that stood up for the Soviet Union and communism, said it wasn't as bad as we thought it was, that didn't properly cover the Holocaust up until the atrocities were really occurring. The paper of record sucks. New York Times is a terrible, terrible group of writers, and they are political activists and have been for a long time. They're an arm and a left. We know this. It's not a secret. And, the decision comes to Anti-Defamation League and others have warned of a recent rise in anti-Semitic incidents. That's not anything like, what are you talking about? It's happened. We've seen it. 2 weeks ago, we saw a guy hold up a synagogue demanding that an anti-Semite Taliban, basically member, Lady Al-Qaeda, whatever the hell she was, got released after trying to kill a soldier. So Anti-Defamation League is not out of the wood, coming out of left field with this. It's not like nothing's happened. They come out and they're like, hey, let's rattle the anti-Semitic thing. No, it has been happening. It's a real thing. Now, is the relation between a small county in Tennessee taking a graphic novel off the shelves of an 8th grader so 13-year-olds can't read it in relation to that? I don't think so, New York Times, you snooty bastards. I don't think Tennessee gives a shit about Anti-Defamation League, especially a small county. They're probably just worried about their kids. This isn't the time for them to learn about that yet. Again, like I said, you could teach them about the Holocaust in a way that it occurred, but you dumb it down. You dumb it down. They're not reading the graphic primary sources that I read in college about these certain things, about the experiments that happened inside of these internment camps, of concentration camps, internment camps in the United States. Sorry, the Democrat FDR interned his own people, Japanese, stop Asian hate, quote, hashtag, but they're not ready to read that at 13 years old. Let's keep going. A similar controversy erupted in Virginia in the midst of last year's closely watched gubernatorial election when Republican Glenn Youngkin released an ad arguing for more parental input in schools. The ad featured a woman who had previously campaigned to remove beloved Nobel Prize winning author Toni Morrison's book from her son's school. Again, this was presented as proof that Youngkin's real agenda was censorship. Again, I'm going to steal something from James Lindsay here. The iron law of woke projection. Whatever they say you're doing, they're doing. And this has been a tactic on the left for a long time. If they're accusing you of it, look for how they're doing it, because they are. Let's keep going. Beloved is undoubtedly a worthy piece of literature, but again, is it an extremely graphic book about a woman who kills her own child to escape the horrors of chattel slavery, and it includes depictions of explicit sex and bestiality. The Virginia parent who campaigned against it said it gave her child nightmares. Having doubts about the book being taught in high school is hardly a war on library books, as Legumas characterized it. So I'm going to stop right there. I've never read Beloved. I can't agree or disagree with the commentary that is presented right here. If this is true, this probably should not be in a high school shelf, unless there's a censored version of it or something. I get it. High schoolers are a little more mature, but this is certainly something that you can read on your own time. Certainly something you could read on your own time. No one's stopping you. Now, I have to say, in middle school, I believe in 6th, 7th grade, the book Speak was there. And, there was a rape scene in Speak. It wasn't graphic, but it definitely, if you read the book, and I read it, I understand it's a girly book, quote unquote girly book. It was a good book. Speak's a fantastic book. It's not just for women. I recommend anybody reading the book Speak. It's pretty balls on. It's a heavy book. And, they have that scene and it talks about a lot of like the high school bullying and stuff like that. It's very heavy into that. But, I don't know. That book probably pushing the boundaries for what I should have read as a 7th grader. I probably maybe wasn't ready for that. Wasn't in high school yet. Maybe if I was, a little bit weaker willed, it might have scared the shit out of me for what high school was going to be like. I understood that it was a piece of literature, so I didn't take it seriously completely. But there, in every single nonfiction, there's some truth in there. Or not nonfiction. Every single fiction, there's a little bit of truth in there. Let's continue. Youngkin's victory in a Democrat bastion that hadn't elected a Republican statewide in over a decade showed the potency of campaigning for the rights of parents in education. The losing candidate, Terry McAuliffe, had vowed not to let parents come into schools and actually take books out or make their own decisions. And that's why Terry McAuliffe lost. You don't go after parents. So stupid. He's a moron. The guy's an idiot. The guy also complained that every single general election that Democrats have lost in the past 20 years have been stolen from them. So let's talk about, election denial. I'm surprised he's not ripping apart the Virginia election. He's kind of went away quietly here because he realized he fucked up when he took this strategy as an idiot. But yeah, no, parents have the right to at least to know what's going on and have a say in what's going on. No, they don't learn pedagogy. They're not education majors. So no, they don't know that type of stuff, but they do know their kids and they do know when shit just doesn't seem right. And they're allowed to have their opinions. And if enough of them have their opinions, well, fuck you and your opinion as a teacher. Their tax dollars pay for you. So you kind of have to listen sometimes. Humble yourself, you fake elitist. Anyway, but if there's no war on library books, parents have reason to be concerned that librarians don't always have kids' best interests in mind. Some years ago, an administrator at a school where I serve on the board told me they had to confiscate a book from a student. I asked to see it. It was one of the Pretty Little Liars novels, which spawned the show that aired on the now defunct ABC Family Channel. That channel is now Freeform, by the way, which has the worst acting of all time on it. Worse than soap operas. I'm going to continue here. I'd venture that most parents would think that this means it's probably a safe choice for adolescents and teenagers. However, the administrator showed me a scene of two teenage girls engaging in sexual behavior with each other amid bargain basement prose calculated to titillate. I agree the book should not be allowed at the school. Now, let me see here. I don't know what age this was, so there's a question there. Because yes, I get it. If it's explicitly sexual, if there's a lot of heavy content, it's tough to say that should stay in certain schools. But if it's a little bit, we can't be too Puritan with this type of stuff. If it's age appropriate kids reading things about kids generally in their age group, not completely guessing. Now, if you're grooming kids, saying, if there's a parent touching or an adult touching a younger kid, 16, 15 years old, and they're trying to make that normal, yeah, fuck that. That's grooming. But I don't know. I have to know the age of this Pretty Little Liars, because just because it's two girls engaging in sexual behavior, Pretty Little Liars took place with high school kids. So if it's high school kids reading with high school kids stuff, I don't know. That to me, I'm on the fence with. Let's keep going. Every year during Banned Book Week, the American Library Association regularly undermines its own cause by championing the right of school libraries to stock lurid kids' books such as Pretty Little Liars and the similar Gossip Girl series, and to smear parents and educators who express qualms about them. The implication is that objecting to exploitative doses of explicit sex and drug use currently found in the young adult fiction market is one step removed from throwing To Kill a Mockingbird on a bonfire. Yeah, no, we had the banned book list in my high school and stuff. And some of it was banned for stupid reasons. Some of it was banned for dumb reasons. Some of it probably should be banned for one reason or another, education. Some of them have no educational value. But again, just because it's banned in a high school library doesn't mean that these kids don't have access to it, that people don't have access to it. Even if it's banned at your high school, more than likely your local library has it. We forget that we have local libraries. There's also an app called Libby on every single one of our smartphones. You can download it. All you need is a library card, and you can access their whole entire book list and read it off your phone as a Kindle or through your Kindle app, or listen to the audiobooks that they have available. Very handy app, Libby.com. No, not Libby.com, just Libby, Libby. All you need is a library card. You're in. You don't pay for anything. There's no ads. It's basically a public service. It's the greatest app I have on my phone. I listen to so many books. I'm not a big reader because I'm slow as shit. I listen to a lot of books. They're all available. They're all there. All there. So this is why I'm a little annoyed by shit like this when people get mad whether or not things are on shelves in fucking high school. Well, let's keep going. It's obvious that many of those criticizing the McMinn School Board have no problem with book banning when it suits their particular values. Last year, Dr. Seuss Enterprises, the company in charge of works by the beloved author of the children's book, decided to stop printing 6 of Seuss's stories over racially insensitive drawings. Liberal America vociferously defended the decision as a matter of political correctness, even though the decision to stop printing the books, along with eBay's decision to forbid the sale of used copies of them, was akin to actual book banning, as opposed to merely removing offensive book from school shelves. That I can agree with. The Dr. Seuss stuff was stupid. But again, it's cancel culture. It's banning. We're not surprised. And of course, they're going to try and draw parallels from absolutely removing the book from circulation and a company banning it being sold. I don't think I could find it on Amazon either if I wanted to look for these 6 books or whatever it was they took off. So that is actual removal of books. Only the ones left in circulation, or only the ones left in ownership are the ones that are there. You kind of have to pass them around. As opposed to, we're just not going to keep these in schools anymore. You can still go to your library. You can still get it on your Kindle. You can still get it on Audible, but just can't have it in your school. Keep going. The politicization of school curricula has given liberals legitimate cause for concern. Some local conservative activists have drawn up extensive lists of books they think should be removed from schools. And there's been a raft of state and local legislation aimed at banning critical race theory from the school curricula that critics worry is overly broad and could be used to needlessly limit what is taught. I will say this: ban critical race theory, ban all critical theories, all of them. They have no place. They have no place. And that includes post-colonialism. That includes queer theory. That includes queer theory. That includes fat theory. That includes gender studies. All those, ban them. They don't belong. They don't progress anything. They don't teach anything. They're there to problematize. That is their goal. Their actual goal is deconstruction and problematization. Problematizing. Deconstruction, problematizing. They don't give any solutions. They don't teach anything besides anger, hatred, and that you are your class. You are your cultural class, your immutable characteristic. That's all they teach. Ban them all. They don't belong in schools. They don't. It's not education. Let's keep going. These developments bear real scrutiny, but the media's reflexive partisanship only confirms the fears of conservative parents. Notice how NBC News is choosing to frame the coverage over new legislative proposals for transparency in schools. Conservative activists want schools to post lesson plans online, but free speech advocates warn such policies could lead to more censorship in K-12 schools. That is so stupid. That is so stupid. Free speech advocates. You're not a free speech advocate. You're not. Because if you're not teaching shady shit, then why should you care what's being taught? That's the bottom line. And if you cannot explain to a parent why this is necessary for your child to be learning it at this point in their education, then you are a shitty teacher. That's what parent-teacher conferences are for. You're supposed to be talking about the child and what you're teaching the kid. You're supposed to know. The parents are supposed to be able to know what their kids are being taught. That's why they write down homework, why they write down plans. Teachers are supposed to have their stupid little portals where parents can go and check out all their homework and kind of, be up to what is being learned and what is being taught. There's no free speech there. As an educator, you don't have the right of free speech in terms of what you teach. You teach a curriculum. And that's that. Let's keep going. A few more paragraphs here. Similarly, complaints about book banning in McMinn County come off as barely concealed attempts to shame people in rural America for what should be perfectly tolerable differences in regional and cultural values. This only validates the concerns of Americans worried about powerful forces undermining local control of education to serve as a national political agenda. So I kind of agree with this. Perfectly tolerable differences in regional and cultural values. Yeah and no. You still need to be able to teach things. I get some teachers, if a person is very sensitive, if there's a racist and they don't want to learn shit about black people, well, fuck you. You got to learn. They're a part of American history. You got to learn. They're a fantastic author. Read their book. It's not like that we should be sitting there in cultural values. The cultural value is racism. The cultural value is hating women. The cultural value is something that is actually bigoted. If the cultural value is a bigoted value, then no. But if it's not bigoted, if it's just, I don't think the kids in this region are ready for this, then yeah. Yeah, 13-year-old shouldn't look at graphic sex. A 13-year-old shouldn't look at graphic depictions of the Holocaust, whether it's humans or animals being depicted. It's not really, it's a no-brainer. They're still 13. They're not adults. Stop grooming them. Anyway, quote, when conservatives want to talk about liberal excesses, they talk about Yale, big tech, and the New York Times, the federal bureaucracy, the Ford Foundation, medical associations, etc., notes Richard Hanania of the Center for the Study of Partisanship and Ideology. When liberals want to talk about conservative excesses, they talk about the McMinn County School Board, end quote. And that's the end of the article. I do have to say, I agree with most of this article, basically. There's some things that he said with kind of what's going on with the books. I agree there needs to be some leeway in terms of what teachers can teach, do teach. They need to be open about it with parents, though. If they're about to teach something that is a little controversial, Then, they should at least have their students go home and inform the parents. They should send something home. Like I took my junior year of high school, I took a honors history that was, covering the Holocaust, that was covering Nazism and a lot of those types of things. And my teacher was fantastic. We all knew him. He's one of the most brilliant men on the planet. I'm going to call him out by name. Todd Cornish. He's one of the most brilliant historians that made learning history amazing. If you're from Manchester and you didn't get a chance to learn from Todd Cornish at all, you missed out. Guy's amazing. Genius. We don't agree much on politics, but the man knows his stuff and he makes it interesting. Very interesting. But we learned about some shit in that class as juniors, as 17-year-olds. We really learned about it, but we knew, and our parents knew entering into that class, we were going to learn about some difficult things. And he wasn't going to treat us like 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds. He was going to kind of treat us like a college level course as an honors class. So we knew that. And he always gave us the opportunity. If there was something that he knew might rub you the wrong way, he would say, hey, listen, you could take a walk. You don't have to be in here for this. Some of these things that I'm going to tell you are difficult. And that is a good way to be. It's open. Teachers and parents should be working together. It shouldn't be a competition over who knows more about the kids. There should be a partnership in education between the teachers and the parents. The teachers should be open with the parents, and the parents should be able to be open with the teachers and voice their opinions with the teachers. And it should all be working together. Here's the thing. I'm not saying that the parents should be the final arbiter over what actually goes on in schools completely. Now, if it's an overwhelming majority of the parents in the area don't want something, then fuck you. You don't teach it. You don't get to teach it. Done. Again, as long as it's not extremely bigoted. If it's an extremely bigoted held view, then no, you don't get to maintain your bigotness and your oppressions. You don't get to maintain that. And that's not oppressions in the wokest sense. It's legitimate ones. But at the same time, I don't know. This is, it's a pretty easy one in this sense that getting things removed off of a school shelf is not banning it. Again, you can access it at your library. And is it age appropriate? There's a debate there. If they can come back and prove like, no, Mao's isn't that bad. Let's look at all the pictures. Like, where is somebody doing that? If you're a proponent of having Mao's back in McMinn County in an 8th grade classroom, come out. There's TikTok, there's Twitter, there's Instagram. There's plenty of places to do it. You can get national attention. Flip the pages page for page. Read the book. Put it on YouTube. Read the book. Let people see. Let people decide. Let people know what's in it. And then they can decide. And, if it's really not as graphic as they're making it out to be, then you win the fight. But if what I know about the Holocaust and studying it a lot, if they're trying to depict it in a graphic novel and do it the right way, a 13-year-old is not ready for that. They're just not. It's college level kids aren't ready for the atrocities of the shit that went on there, man. 13-year-old certainly isn't ready for it. So that's it. That's the show. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I'll be back tomorrow with a new article on whatever I can find, whatever is interesting. There's always a lot going on. Try and not be negative, I guess. It's hard. It's really hard with all the stuff going on, all the stupidity, all the things that are trying to get pulled over our eyes. And, we have David and I are going to talk about the truckers in Canada and what's going on there. And, freedom's going to win, guys. I'll just tell you that much. Freedom's always going to win. Just keep faith in that. If you're down, if you're thinking that the chips are stacked, media, the corporate media is leftist. They're trying to censor. They're trying to do this. Good always wins. Freedom always wins. You just got to keep sticking with it. That's just it. All right, everybody, give a like, share, follow, subscribe, rate us 5 stars, word of mouth, tell people about the show. Socials, just go search the Alex Cuesta Show. CUESTA. Thanks again for listening. I will be back tomorrow. Have a good one all.